You know, in this life, there are places we go to feel safe. For some, it's a warm kitchen with the smell of fresh bread rising. For others, it's the porch at dawn, watching the sky blush with the first light of morning. But for me, especially in moments when the world feels heavy, uncertain, even a little dark, there's one place I always return to, and it's not made of wood or stone. It's the quiet shelter of the Most High. Now, I'm not talking about a church building or some grand cathedral. I'm talking about something far more intimate. It's the space in your spirit where you dwell inwardly with the Almighty, where you rest not just your body, but your fears, your doubts, your restless thoughts. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. That's the old promise. And oh, how real it becomes when you've lived long enough to see how fragile the world can be. Let me tell you something from my own life. There was a season not too long ago when I felt surrounded by shadows. You know the kind: bad news on the phone, too many bills on the table, too few answers from the doctors. At night, I'd hear the silence ringing in my ears and wonder if peace was still possible. But in the middle of all that, I remembered I don't have to carry this alone. And so, I whispered the words like a prayer I'd known since childhood. You are my refuge, my fortress, my God, in you will I trust. And friend, that changed everything. See, there's something profound about calling God your shelter. It's not a metaphor, it's a way of living. Because when we learn to dwell in that divine protection, it doesn't mean the storm stops, it means we are no longer at its mercy. Yes, the world will still tremble, the arrows will still fly by day, and the terrors may still whisper through the night. But when your soul is anchored in the protection of the Almighty, you don't crumble, you don't flee, you simply remain rooted, steady, sheltered. And maybe you're hearing this right now and thinking, but I've been through too much. I've lost too many people. My faith isn't what it used to be. If that's you, I just want to say this gently. The invitation still stands. You don't have to be strong to seek shelter. You just have to come as you are. That's the beauty of it. The psalm goes on to say, "You shall not be afraid of the terror by night, nor of the arrow that flies by day, nor of the pestilence that walks in darkness, nor of the destruction that lays waste at noonday." Isn't that something? It names every fear we carry: the sudden tragedies, the slow creeping threats, the loneliness that visits late at night, the chaos that shows up in broad daylight. And then it says, don't be afraid, because God, your God, is your refuge, your protector, the one who covers you with his feathers and under whose wings you find rest. I don't know about you, but I find something deeply comforting in that image. The thought that God's presence is like a soft wing wrapping around you, not to trap you, but to shield you, to remind you that even in your lowest valley, you are not forgotten. Let me pause here and tell you what I believe with my whole heart, something I've learned from walking through grief, from standing at hospital bedsides, from holding hands in silence. God is not far off. He is near. He walks with us through the fire and holds us through the storm. And when we choose to dwell with him, not just visit him on Sundays, but truly abide, we begin to feel that nearness, that security, that peace that doesn't make sense to the world but makes all the sense in the world to our soul. You don't have to see him to know he's with you. You don't have to hear him to trust that he listens. All you need is a heart willing to return to rest in his shadow and say, "You are my refuge." So today, if you're weary, if you're anxious, if your mind has been running in circles trying to fix what's broken, maybe you can just stop, breathe, and remember the promise that whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. This isn't a fairy tale. It's not a wishful idea. It's a spiritual reality, tested over centuries and lived out by the faithful who came before us. And it's waiting for you today. So come, sit in the stillness. Let the worries fall away, even for a moment. Let your soul be quiet and feel the gentle strength of a God who never sleeps, who never forgets you, and who has promised to be your refuge not just in the good days, but especially in the hard ones. May you dwell in that secret place today, and may you find peace in the shadow that never leaves. There's a kind of wisdom that only time can give you. When you've lived through decades of change, wars, recessions, the birth of the internet, the rise and fall of people and plans, you begin to see what truly lasts. And often, it's not the things we once thought were unshakable. Not the money, not the fame, not even good health. What remains is the presence of God. I think about the words from that psalm again. 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it shall not come near you. That's not a promise that trouble won't happen. It's not saying you'll live a life untouched by sorrow. It's saying that even when everything around you falls apart, even when fear spreads like wildfire, you are held, protected, not necessarily from the storm itself, but from being destroyed by it. Let me tell you a story. Years ago, I met a woman in her 70s. She'd buried her husband, survived cancer twice, and was living alone in a small apartment with nothing fancy. She didn't have much, but the moment you walked into her home, you felt peace, like the very walls had been soaked in prayer. One day I asked her, "What's your secret? How do you stay so calm when the world is so chaotic?" She smiled, leaned back in her chair, and said, "Child, I've learned to live under his shadow. When I wake up, I thank him. When I eat, I bless the meal. When I worry, I hand it to him before it eats me alive. And when I lay down to sleep, I say, Lord, you're still in charge." That's how I stay calm. I don't carry what I was never meant to carry. That stayed with me. Because the truth is, many of us are walking through life carrying weights that were never ours to hold. The burden of trying to control everything, the fear of the unknown, the guilt from our past, the anxiety of what tomorrow might bring. But you know what Psalm 91 reminds us? That we are invited to release it all, to abide, not strive, to rest, not panic, to trust, not fear. The scripture says, "Because he has set his love upon me, therefore I will deliver him. I will set him on high, because he has known my name." Isn't that beautiful? God isn't looking for perfection. He's not impressed by how polished your prayers sound or how long you've been sitting in a pew. He's drawn to love, to trust, to a heart that whispers even through trembling lips, "I still believe you're good." That's the kind of faith that moves mountains. Not loud, not flashy, but rooted, steady, quietly unwavering. And I want to say this to anyone listening today who feels forgotten or overlooked. God sees you. Even when you feel invisible to the world, you are not invisible to Him. Your tears are noticed. Your prayers are heard. Your battles are not ignored. Psalm 91 says, "He shall call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him." There's no fine print, no asterisk that says, "Only if you've got it all together." No expiration date on His nearness. When you call, He answers. Not always with the answer we expect, but always with His presence. And friend, sometimes presence is more powerful than answers. Because when God is with you, the fire doesn't consume you. The flood doesn't drown you. The loneliness doesn't break you. You're not just surviving, you're walking through it, hand in hand with the Almighty. I know life can feel unpredictable, especially as we get older. Our bodies slow down. Friends move on. The world around us changes so quickly it can feel like we don't recognize it anymore. But there is one thing, one person who never changes, The same God who walked with Moses through the Red Sea, who shut the mouths of lions for Daniel, who calmed the storm for the disciples, that same God walks with you right now, in this season, in your home, in your heart, and He's not going anywhere. So maybe today, you need a reminder not of what's broken, but of what's unbreakable. Not of how far you've fallen, but of how far grace will reach to catch you. Maybe you need to know that even in your quietest moments, when no one else calls or checks in, heaven hasn't gone silent. You are under His wings. You are not forgotten. You are not abandoned. And you are never, ever alone. So take a deep breath. Let those shoulders relax. Let go of the fear you've been gripping so tightly. And remember the words that echo through generations. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. It's not just scripture, it's sanctuary. A place where weary souls can rest. A promise that doesn't expire with time. A whisper in the noise of life saying, "Come closer, I've got you." And He does. You know, the older I get, the more I realize that peace isn't found in perfect circumstances. It's not in having every answer, every dollar, or every detail figured out. Real peace is found in presence. Not just the presence of quiet or solitude, but the presence of someone greater. The kind of presence that stills your spirit even when your world is shaking. That's what Psalm 91 speaks to, over and over. It doesn't promise that danger will disappear, but it promises that we'll never face it alone. It's a love letter for the weary. A reminder for those who've seen enough of life to know that storms do come, but so does rescue. The verse says, "With long life I will satisfy him and show him my salvation." And you know, I used to think long life meant just counting years, but now I think it means something deeper. A life lived fully. A life filled with trust, wisdom, and the kind of joy that doesn't fade with time. A life that may have seen suffering, but one that also witnessed God's hand through it all. Maybe your back isn't as strong as it once was. Maybe your hands tremble now when they used to build, to carry, to hold. Maybe your eyes see less, and your memory doesn't hold quite as tight. But friend, let me tell you something beautiful. Your spirit has never been stronger. Because a lifetime of walking with God, even if that walk was messy or full of stumbles, is a life that has built roots. Deep, quiet, sacred roots. And those don't shake when the wind blows. You've prayed prayers that no one else ever heard. You've forgiven things that no one else ever knew about. You've carried grief like a stone in your pocket, never visible, but always felt. And through it all, God never let go. So don't let anyone tell you that your value fades with age, that somehow the second half of your life is less meaningful. It's not. In fact, some of the most powerful work God does happens in the later chapters. Abraham was called in his old age. Moses didn't lead until he was 80. Sarah laughed at the promise and still gave birth. And you're not done yet either. There are still words for you to speak. Still people who need your prayers. Still songs that need your voice. Still wisdom someone younger is waiting to hear. Psalm 92, right after the one we've been dwelling in, says this: "The righteous shall flourish like a palm tree. They shall still bear fruit in old age. They shall be fresh and flourishing." Isn't that a promise worth holding on to? Because even when the body slows down, the spirit can rise up. Even when you retire from your job, you never retire from your purpose. God isn't done with you, and you're not disqualified by your years. If anything, your years are your strength. Your scars are testimonies. Your story is sacred ground. And maybe you're watching this video from a quiet living room, or maybe from a hospital bed. Maybe you're in a season of reflection, looking back more than you look ahead. If so, can I just encourage you? Look back with grace. Because yes, there are regrets. We all have them. But you don't need to carry the weight of should have and what if anymore. The God who promises refuge is also the God who redeems the years. He can bring purpose even out of pain. He can turn ashes into beauty, even the kind that no one else ever saw. You see, living under the shadow of the Almighty doesn't just protect you, it transforms you. It teaches you to walk slower, to breathe deeper, to speak kinder, to forgive quicker. It helps you see life not through the lens of fear, but through the lens of faith. And in your final seasons, even if your steps are shorter, your heart is still full of eternal things, things that never grow old: love, peace, joy, patience, kindness. These are the fruits you still carry. These are the gifts the world still needs from you. One of my favorite lines in Psalm 91 says, "He shall cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you shall take refuge." I imagine that sometimes, like a bird gathering her chicks close, not out of duty, but out of fierce protective love. That's God for us. Not distant, not cold, but close, tender, protective. And every wrinkle on your face, He's counted them. Every sigh in the night, He's heard them. Every tear you've cried alone, not one has been wasted. So tonight, whenever that may be for you, I hope you find your own version of the secret place. It might be in prayer, it might be in song, it might be in simply sitting still and whispering, "God, I'm here. Are you?" And I promise you He'll whisper back, "I've been here all along." Because that's who He is. Not just a shelter in the storm, not just a name in a book, but a refuge, a father, a faithful friend. So rest tonight, not because everything is perfect, but because you are perfectly held. And as long as you dwell in the shadow of the Almighty, no fear can claim you, no darkness can overwhelm you, and no season is ever wasted. You're home now, under His wings. There's a sacred stillness that comes with age. It's not silence, it's not loneliness, it's something deeper. It's the peace that grows in your soul after you've walked through life's valleys and found that you were never really walking alone. You start to realize that what matters most is not what you built with your hands, but what you nurtured with your heart. The kindness you gave without being asked. The prayers you whispered for someone who never knew. The quiet strength you carried when others fell apart. And maybe that's what Psalm 91 has really been about all along. Not a list of magical protections, but a relationship, a lifelong resting place, a steady, unseen hand that holds you from the inside out. He shall call upon me, and I will answer him, it says. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him, and I will honor him. Honor. Isn't that a beautiful word? We often think of honoring God, and rightly so. But here God speaks of honoring us, not because we're perfect, not because we never doubted or failed, but because we loved Him, we leaned on Him, we called on His name, even in our weakest moments. Friend, I don't know everything you've walked through in life, but I do know this. If you've kept the faith, even if it was just a thread, if you've chosen love over bitterness, if you've stood in the gap and prayed for others, then you've lived a life that heaven calls honorable. You've already left behind something eternal. And let me tell you, your legacy is not measured by the number of years you lived or the wealth you accumulated. It's measured by the peace you carried, the hope you passed on, the faith you kept alive, even when it flickered in the wind. Maybe your children don't always understand your faith. Maybe the world has changed so fast that your values feel out of place. Maybe you wonder if your story still matters in a culture that's always rushing ahead. But it does. In fact, it matters now more than ever. Because this generation, this world, they don't need louder voices. They need wiser ones. They need stories of endurance, of courage, of holding on when everything says to let go. They need you. Your quiet prayers, your steady faith, your testimony of how God was faithful even when you didn't understand His ways. You see, when you've lived under the shadow of the Almighty long enough, something changes in you. You stop trying to control everything. You stop needing all the answers. And instead, you begin to trust deeply, joyfully, fully, not because life got easier, but because you discovered who holds your life. And when that becomes real to you, fear loses its grip. You're no longer afraid of tomorrow, no longer bound by regrets, no longer shaken by headlines or worried by what the world may bring. You live in the shadow of the one who reigns over all of it. And that is freedom. You wake up each morning not with dread, but with quiet expectation. Lord, thank you for today. Whatever it holds, I'm walking with you. You lay your head down at night, not in anxiety, but in assurance. You watched over me again. You kept me. And tomorrow, you'll still be here. So as you move forward, whether you're 55 or 85, I want to encourage you to walk lighter. Don't carry the burdens that aren't yours anymore. Don't chase perfection. Don't worry about being impressive. Be faithful. Be gentle. Be present. Let your life now be a song of peace, one that others can hear and be soothed by. Maybe it's through your words. Maybe it's through your silence. Maybe it's in how you sit with someone in grief, or how you speak blessing over your grandchildren, or how you keep showing up even when your body feels tired. All of it matters. All of it echoes. And when your time on this earth comes to its final page, may it be said of you, they dwelled in the secret place of the Most High, and they brought peace with them wherever they went. Because they were covered, carried, known, and deeply loved. That is the promise of Psalm 91. It's not just something we memorize, it's something we live, something we pass down, something we return to again and again until it becomes part of who we are. And it's not too late to begin. Even now, even here. So, if you haven't prayed in a while, you still can. If you feel far from God, He's never stopped drawing near. If you're afraid, there's a shelter waiting for you. Come back to the secret place. Sit in the shadow. Let Him quiet your soul. And know this with certainty. You are seen. You are safe. You are not alone. You never were. And you never will be.